And now, it's the Finding Your Spine podcast with host Chase Spears.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the Finding Your Spine podcast, where we call men and women of moral principle to take a stand and to live it out in their lives, leadership, and workplaces. I'm here today with two men who are actually standing in the fight right now. We usually share stories of people when they've come through the fire, but these two men are in it right now. They're both military members, and they're both here to share their stories and are bravely speaking up about what's happening to them and the trials that they're going through. And yet they're standing firm in the midst of it. And so just really honored to spend the next little bit of time with both of them. I've got two with me today. First is Chief Warrant Officer 3, Brandon Bulge. And then I've got Chris Babczak. And so, gentlemen, thanks so much to both of you for coming on today and being willing to talk about the stands you're taking in spite of, I know, the difficulties that it brings.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
I'm going to kick off. Brandon, I want to start with your story. And to give you a little bit of biographical background, Brandon has been in the Army for 22 years, spent most of it as a Black Hawk helicopter pilot and maintenance test pilot. He started his military career by joining the U.S. Navy as a cryptologic technician interpretive. He specialized in Hebrew and graduated from the Defense Language Institute. In 2007, he came on over to the Army through the Warrant Officer Flight Program that's held at Fort Rucker, Alabama. Brandon is married and has 7 children, 4 boys and 3 girls. His family life keeps him busy, grounded, and active. And yet, he is currently being forced out of the Army over the Defense Department's now rescinded COVID policy. And so you hear a lot about the fact that allegedly this policy has been done away with, but Brandon is a standing example that that policy is still putting good men and women out of the Army today. So Brandon, really glad to have you here. I'm really frustrated to hear about what you're going through. And if I can help ring the bell about the fact that it needs to be made right, I want to help ring that bell. So thanks for coming. And let's get started and kind of telling a little bit about your story. And actually, before we do, let me throw out a quick disclaimer. I'm not in the military, so I don't have to play this game anymore. But both of these men are still in the military, and so what our discussion is based in their personal capacity, and doesn't reflect necessarily the thoughts or positions of the Department of Defense, Department of the Army, or any other military services. So I want to make very clear they are here in their personal capacity. And so with that, Brandon, kind of bring us up to speed. To listen to the Secretary of Defense, everything is fixed. The COVID policy is all fixed. And not only is no one being thrown out anymore, we're still bringing soldiers back in. It's all fixed. That's what I keep hearing, but that's not what you're finding to be true.
No, in fact, I just read the other day that DoD PR was pretty excited about the 13 people that they brought back. And ratio-wise, I haven't done the math, but 13 out of more than 90,000 doesn't seem terribly effective. Maybe it's not the Secretary of Defense's fault. Maybe that there's a hitch somewhere. But in my case, we stayed in and we fought back or we pushed back, which cost us significantly, because I always joke, maybe I should have chosen a different profession, because we've got anywhere from 2 or 3 lawyers at a time, it seems like. So it's been pretty terribly expensive, but we've continued to fight, and we've just kind of reached the end of that road. I was selected for Chief Warrant Officer 4 during the 2020 selection cycle, and I was supposed to be promoted. I'm sorry, the 2021 selection cycle, my apology. And I was supposed to be promoted in February of 22, but because of the General Officer's Memorandum of Reprimand that was given, that triggered a Special Selections Review Board, and that Special Selections Review Board saw fit to remove that promotion from me. So I lost my sequence number, I lost my promotion, and 3 years down the road now, more than 3 years, almost 3.5, we're not promoted to Chief Warrant Officer 4, and so the Army counts that as, now I'm a 2-time passover, and so I have to be removed from the military. And we've started the process. We've gone through the VA disability, the Army disability, where they make all the the estimations as far as your compensation and those things go and your percentages. So we've got 2 months left in the military right now, and that will make me just shy of 22 years. And it's unfortunate. The flight time, the time I've spent in the Black Hawk, my intimate knowledge with it, these are things that just can't be replaced by somebody that you send through a maintenance test pilot course or you put in an air assault unit. The Army right now, the last 4 to 5 years, 4.5 years, the world's been pretty uncertain, and the best offense is a good defense. You talk about walk softly but carry a big stick, but if you sideline all of your players, your most knowledgeable players, when things get the worst, you kind of lose the grounds to deter bad actors around the world.
Brandon, I'm sitting here right now holding the memorandum signed by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, dated April 23rd, 2025, and it is not vague. It is not really subject to a lot of varying interpretation. It's pretty clear.
It isn't. I think it says unlawful as implemented.
Unlawful as implemented, and it tells military department review boards to go back and to fix these records, but that's not happening.
No, it's really not. It seems like there is kind of a faction that's left in the legal departments of the different military structures that are pushing back and making sure that things don't happen as planned. Unfortunately, I don't know how else to frame it. I know that Sam Shoemade and some of these other organizations, Our Country, Our Choice, they've literally put out intercepted email chains where there's been an encouraged, what was called malicious compliance. And you can interpret that however you want, but complying in a malicious manner is never a good thing. And so we see time after time so far, it gets published to X and some of these other spaces, where people's attempts at re-entering the military or attempts at correcting the record. In my case, I don't have to re-enter the military, I just have to correct my record. They're being denied that opportunity. It's just a flat out denial, and it happened quick. In my case, March, I was told to put in a packet, I put in my packet, and even before that memo came out, my packet was denied for relief, and so we didn't get anywhere with it. But then they caveat it with, I have to provide more evidence if I am to reapply. So that required, in this case, we worked with Davis Yonts again. We've worked with him in the past, and another $1,500 on top of the nearly $40,000 we've already spent. I've had to take the Department of the Army through civil court. You can look it up. I think it's Brandon Budge versus the Department of the Army for their rejection of my FOIA requests. And something like 20 months later, we finally got it, and nearly the entire thing is redacted. So, $15,000 to $20,000 later, and everything's redacted. And there's nothing really that we can use inside of that. So it seems like every time we turn around, we're being thwarted in some way. And I know that there are good people that want to turn this around. It's just when you have these underlying, and of course this is my interpretation of the situation, nobody else's, but when you have these underlying precepts like malicious compliance, it's going to be impossible for a single individual or even a handful of individuals to turn it around. I mean, you look at how many people and organizations have been pushing back and fighting against this, from STARS to Our Country, Our Choice. You have Colonel McGregor, you have General Flynn's been on board with this stuff. You have prominent lawyers that were very prominent during the anthrax issue in the late 90s and early 2000s. And they've all pushed back. You have all of the civil cases that are going on, and still we're not really making any headway. And I know a lot of people got excited when that memo came out from the SecDef, and before that when he made that video that was published to X. Finally somebody's called it for what it is. It's unlawful. Any punishment given under an unlawful order should be reversed. Period. You can't make the argument any other way. But that has not it's not gone from the video and the memo to actual practice.
Yeah, until you get the policy actually into the culture, that's one thing that I noticed time and time again in the military. You can change the policy, but until you get commanders to actually obey the policy and to change the culture, that requires leader direct involvement. And we had this saying when I was in the Army, I'm sure it's probably still there, Brandon. Soldiers do what leaders check, and that comes to mind in this case right now. Who is checking these commanders? And the more I find out about cases like yours, and I've talked to other people besides you two gentlemen as well, it doesn't seem to me that these commanders are actually being checked. It seems like policy is being signed, and we're assuming policy was signed. That makes it fixed, but it's not. Chris, I want to jump over to you real quick and give some biographical information. You've served 17 years in the Arkansas National Guard, in which you are a technical sergeant, and you are dual qualified in 2 career fields, aircraft mechanic and aircraft electrician. So we have 2 aviation-minded men with us here today. As a civilian, you also own a real estate investment company. You do a lot of automotive work out of your home as well, and study constitutional and fundamental law. Husband of 13-year, homeschooling dad to your 6-year-old daughter, and a patriot who is also still fighting for your ability to continue serving the nation in uniform. Tell us a little bit about your case, Chris.
Again, thank you for having me. I'm a survivor of the COVID mandates, and I got class action protection in the Doster versus Kendall case in 2022. Resubmitted a religious accommodation request for a flu vaccine. Received final denial in October 2024. Sent off a legal notice to the entire chain of command and several other members in government, including Congress and the Supreme Court. Received 2 orders on my weekend in November. Immediately received a letter of reprimand. I responded to that by a sworn affidavit, sent certified mail. Commander upheld the one letter of reprimand and gave me an involuntary separation package. Fast forward, I was supposed to have my separation board on June 7th. And just prior to that, a policy had come out from the Pentagon that the flu vaccine for reserve component people was no longer being required. And they, at this time, have postponed my separation board. But the last I'd heard from the commander is they're still going to have the separation board. They're looking for further guidance. So that is the short gist of it. I'm sure I've missed a bunch of stuff, but that's the short of it.
Yeah, and I've also got that memorandum right here as well, talking about the fact that for reserve component soldiers, it is no longer mandatory, and yet your chain of command is moving forward like this thing doesn't exist, and saying awaiting further guidance. I mean, what is policy if not guidance? Just boggles my mind. So I know they've delayed your separation board, but from what we were discussing not too long ago, you're still not allowed to go in and drill. You're still on a no points, no pay basis. So they've halted your pay as a drilling National Guardsman. They've halted your ability to come in and drill as a National Guardsman. They've halted your ability to accrue points towards being able to retire from the National Guard. And yet there's this thick irony that you work in that same organization as a civilian doing the same job, and apparently you're not a biological hazard Monday through Friday, but only 1 weekend a month you would be a biological hazard, right? Is that pretty much the logic we're using here?
And on top of that, I never took the COVID shot, and I've worked with 2 people in close proximity at work who have had COVID, and they both had to go home or whatever. They were running fevers, couldn't taste or smell things. And in both situations, I did not turn around and get COVID.
Now, Chris, I'm going to step out onto a limb here a little bit and risk getting myself in trouble. But I know on the active duty side, prior to 2020, and I've had this conversation with other people, it was not an existential crisis if you didn't get a shot 1 year. It was not an existential crisis. It was not an issue of controversy to request a medical or religious accommodation to a certain vaccine before 2020. It was not something that risked ending your career or getting you called vax denier or any other variety of pejoratives. And yet here we are post 2020, and they just are so intense on this. And let me take it one step further. On the active side, for right or wrong, there's sometimes a perspective that the National Guard side is a little more lax in rule enforcement. And to see a National Guard unit being this absolutely bent on continuing to try to end your National Guard career over, one, something that's such a minor issue to begin with, and two, something that, again, the Secretary of Defense has put out a memorandum saying, hey, this isn't a requirement anymore. I mean, what justification are they giving for continuing to try to put it to you?
I think the biggest thing here is, and to tap on to what Brandon has already said, is I think Secretary Hegseth has a very good heart. He's trying to do the right thing. Same for the president. But they're only going to do the best they have around them with the intelligence they have around them. And there's a lot of bad actors in the Pentagon that are purposely withholding information. I've been asked the question before, why hasn't Secretary of Defense fixed more of this stuff? And the answer is because he's surrounded by a bunch of corrupt people, is my personal opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I think I am highly suspect of his courtiers, and one of my concerns, and I've said this, since long before Mr. Hegseth became the Secretary of Defense, a nomination that I was very supportive of. But I've had a concern for a long time that if no matter how many righteous people you bring into an office, if you don't clear out the courtiers, if you don't clear out all the ring of people and replace them with people who are actually loyal to what is true, what is right, what is lawful, these same problems will continue, because I'm certain that he is probably being told in his daily briefings, all good here, sir. But clearly all is not good. Brandon, I want to come back to you. I mean, here you are. Your case is so cut and dry, clear that you should not be going through this. I mean, you're a 22-year-old aviator. Aviators are not, as you've already noted, they're not produced overnight, especially not aviators with the combat flying experience that you have. It's an inherently dangerous thing, flying military helicopters in the conditions that you guys are expected to fly them. And we need the best of the best of the best up there. And here they've got a guy like you who's seasoned, who's experienced, who, I mean, you could walk out. You've got 22 years. You could walk out, walk straight into the airlines, have a whole nother life, probably fly to some way cooler destinations than Army aviation takes you. But you're still willing to serve, and you still want to serve, and you're still fighting to serve. I got to know, man, what undergirds you? What keeps you from saying, I'm done, man, I'm done with this?
I can't say that I would fly in cooler places. I mean, I've flown a Black Hawk through all over Australia. I've flown in Israel. I've flown in Egypt. I've flown in Afghanistan. I've flown all over the United States. And it's different flying in a helicopter. You're so close to everything on the ground. I was given instruction by Israeli air traffic control one time to stay 100 feet and below the Negev, which is the desert. And so I was in an Alpha Plus, we call it a Frankenhawk. So it's an Alpha with Lima and Mike model engines on the airframe. They're a lot faster because they're lighter. And I thought I was cooking along, just over 50 feet off the deck, and three F-16s pulled up next to me. 3 Israeli F-16s, 2 on one side, 1 on the other, and the one on the left side decided to do a Top Gun maneuver and rolled over the top to come down next to the 2 on my right. He just didn't stop for the Polaroid. But, so those are neat things. But really, what it comes down to is wanting to pass my knowledge on to the next generation. And it's not even the time I spent in combat, because there's a lot of people that are leaving, unfortunately, with the change in the tides. They're leaving the United States Army and Army aviation, and they shouldn't be. There should be a fight to retain these individuals. They've got more combat time than I do. But what I have is also my time in the aircraft, in a combat theater or other theaters where things weren't readily available as a maintenance test pilot, and having to figure out and problem solve. That problem solving comes with years of experience and effort, and that can't just be passed on. I can coach other people and I can give them ideas, but I can't pass on the resourcefulness. Being able to source parts in Australia that we just couldn't get otherwise, and working with the Navy and other counterparts and Australian counterparts, and to try and find parts to get aircraft back up so that they're not stuck in Australia, thousands of miles away from home base, which is Joint Base Lewis McChord. Those types of things, the amount of time I've spent just in the aircraft making adjustments, running it up, shutting it down, those are things that can't just be passed on. I can help coach, just like an MBA coach doesn't pass on what he learned right away. It's not by osmosis. It's something that happens over time, and I need that time to pass on this knowledge and information, or to continue to do so. And that's what keeps me going. I feel like, and it seemed like, there were a lot of bullies that came out of the woodwork. A lot of people that were willing to throw around their weight, whatever rank they had been given, whatever position they had been given, they were willing to throw that around to hurt other people for no reason. I mean, I know colonels' friends that made an effort not to do that. They just made sure people didn't appear on lists so that wouldn't turn into something that they could be targeted for. And instead, in so many cases, commanders took it as carte blanche to act like bullies, and they took things further than needed to be taken, because nobody gave them any type of guidance on what should be done for those that were either against or questioned the vaccine. Like in my case, mine was more of a question than being totally against it. My wife, my kids, there was no guidance given on what should be done with people that may have had questions or didn't want to get it, period. And so, like the old saying goes, when the cat's away, the mice will play. They were given carte blanche, and they just acted on it in whatever fashion they felt. Some gave GOMARs that were permanent. Some commanders gave GOMARs that were local. Some commanders took it even further, like in Mark Pashaw's case, and went all the way to courts-martials. It varied so widely. There was no continuity between any of it. And some people just absolutely got buried under it. And that's another reason I've stayed and fought, is I just can't. There's so many people. I talked to you about this on the phone earlier, last time we spoke. You look at the suicide rates, just went through the roof over the last 4 years. A 10% increase, and 30% of all active suicides were individuals being targeted by either the military administrative or the military legal process. 30% of all active duty suicides. Those are people we can never have back. Those are people that could have been lethal warriors and could have furthered what should be the goal of the United States Army, which is to seek out, close with, and destroy the enemies of the United States. They could have been there to help promote that fight. They could have been there to help promote efficiency. They could have been there for those things, but now we'll never have them back. Now their families will never have them back. Now, these individuals will never have that opportunity to turn around and to push back against something that should not have happened anyways. When we moved towards this investigation culture, we broke down the very fabric, the foundation of what the military should be.
Brandon, I really want to come back and dig into those suicide numbers for a moment, because that's something that I don't think the public is aware of at all. The amount of hopelessness and the amount of people who you really hit the nail on the head with the investigative culture. We've become this institution that just, oh, someone makes a complaint, now you must automatically be under investigation because that's how a commander covers their base. Oh, someone made a complaint, now I launched an investigation. To be under investigation in the military is a horrible experience. Every leader who's gone through it knows it. Every leader wants to avoid it. And when you've got, it's one thing for us as officers, we have a little bit more means and a little bit more life experience and typically a little bit more support. But when you're thinking about the younger enlisted, I mean, when you're sitting there trying to figure out how to feed your family and they're threatening your career and you are literally doing the math and saying, financially, I am worth more dead in terms of benefits to my family than I am alive if the military has its way with doing what they want to do to me. I mean, that's such an immoral position for this institution that says it cares about people to put those people in.
Absolutely, and we talked about that before. It's, I used the scenario, hypothetical scenario of an E5 who is already under stress because, the military doesn't pay much as an E5. Maybe he's got a new baby, and now he and his wife have stresses because he's been isolated over a vaccine or something that would really not be anything in anywhere else or at any other point in our military history. But suddenly he's isolated and he has nowhere to turn because he's just been left out in the cold. I remember watching General Flynn's interview with Nicole Shanahan, and she asked him the question, I believe it was something, what was the hardest part of all of this? And his wife chimed in and mentioned that all of the people that were their friends, and you're talking about somebody that was a 3-star general, all of the people that claimed to be their friends suddenly left and disappeared and didn't want anything to do with them. And so that's what happens. Somebody gets tagged in an investigation and everybody spreads because they don't want to get that on them. They don't want to be a part of that. They don't want to have... And luckily I had some really good friends that did stick by me. When my command put me through a flying evaluation board, they really did. They saw the injustices and they wanted to help. And one of them in particular, he essentially put his whole career on the line because he saw how negative the command had gotten and the lengths that they went to when really there was nothing for them to go on. But because it stemmed from that COVID vaccine, it took on a whole different nature. It kind of became its own beast. It was the swamp creature of all swamp creatures, and it crawled out and really just drug people under. And unfortunately, a lot of leaders, it seems, were complicit in burying many people's careers, and in some cases, because of, we saw the uptrend in suicides, they also were at least partially responsible for burying people.
Which is the opposite of what a commander's supposed to do, to try as best he or she can to bring everybody home. Chris, let me jump back over to you real quick. Brandon talked a moment ago about the kind of command bullying posture that we saw on the active duty side. And one of the things that I tried to do in the last few years of my career, the Lord was really good and shielded me from a lot of stuff that was happening in the Army by having me in a training role instead of an active spokesman role. And so I got to go out and train units, and I always tried, if at all possible, if I had a choice in it, I would always steer myself towards going and working with the National Guard units, because I've just, throughout my career, found the National Guard to have much more of a family mentality, and people who were, they were just more open to learn. They were less concerned about who had what rank and who had been to what school. It was much more hey, we're here as a team. What can we do to learn? What can we do to become the best we can? And so I enjoyed that kind of environment, and I had the most fun working with Guard units. And one of the things that always stuck out to me about the Guard was, I remember I was an E4, and I met my first Guard unit in Kuwait, and I noticed there was something very different about the culture. They all got along really well. There didn't seem to be a lot of backstabbing. They seemed actually to genuinely like being around each other. And so one day I asked this sergeant that I went through to work with this unit, and I said, I've got to know, what's going on with your unit? This is an unusually happy place. And he said, well, Chase, we're guard. I'm like, okay. He said, we all live in the same community. We go to the same churches. Our kids go to the same school. You can't mistreat someone over here when you're deployed, because when you get home, you still have to live with that person, and you still have to see that person and be in community with that person. And the commander, when you're in uniform, might be the subordinate when you're in civilian clothes back home. And so I'm really just even more disappointed to hear of what you're going through in your guard unit. I mean, are you seeing this across other parts of the guard, or is there something in the water where you're stationed at? What's going on?
I don't know exactly. I agree with everything you say. As far as you work with the same people for many years. It's not, if you don't like somebody, give it 2 years and either they're gone or you're gone, like active duty is. I did 6 years active duty. Glad I left. I would never go back. I want to stay Air National Guard. Um, it is a much better culture and environment. But as far as my particular command's case, look, I like my commander. He's a very nice guy, very easy to get along with. But at the end of the day, we all raised our right hands, and you swore an oath to support and defend the constitutions, state and federal. And your primary job for anybody in government to having a job is for the protection and preservation of Americans' rights. And that includes the military. We do not give up our God-given inalienable rights. Your rights come from God. They do not come from government. But we don't have that training in the military either. I'm sure, Brandon, I don't know, in any of your warrant officer training, they probably don't go over the constitutions very much. I have yet to find a military member to say that they have. And I've talked with officers, I've talked with other enlisted, I've talked with people in other branches. It doesn't exist. That's a big foul. And so they think, well, the reg says this, and that's just the gospel truth. And I'm like, no, you can always challenge it. And those regulations they're in-house policies with the Department of Defense. They're not laws per se. They're just self-legislated within the Department of Defense, and they're attacking you with it. But at the end of the day, if it's not in pursuance with the Constitution, it is null and void. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and you really bring up a good point about the constitutional training that I have only seen. My 20 years in, I went through one single constitutional training. I want to say it was 2017, if I remember correctly. It was Constitution Day, and the command I was under put out a tasking that everyone had to go to this website, and it was like this little online 10-minute animated thing about how cool the Constitution was, but it didn't really, it wasn't Hillsdale level quality, let's just say that. And I've actually researched this recently because I've been curious. This is a pet peeve of mine now, and I'm doing some writing about it, that in law right now, the only constitutional training requirement is for officers who are commissioning through the service academies to have a block of instruction on the Constitution. That's it. And at West Point, that means it's pretty much like a lesson stuffed into an ethics course, but it's not its own course. It's certainly not something that is told to the force regularly. And it's ironic because, and I know, Brandon, you really feel this as well, we have on the active duty side all these annual trainings you have to do. Like, heaven help you if you miss your equal opportunity training. They will come find you, right? Or your anti-terrorism training, and the list goes on and on and on. Why don't we have an annual constitutional training? That just boggles my mind because we all swear an oath to it, right? And we all see these officers who get behind in the House and Senate Armed Services Committee, and they say, well, I do this because I support the Constitution. And I'm like, well, you need to actually understand what the Constitution means before you signal to it.
Add to that, ask an attorney next time you meet one how much time they spent studying the Constitution in law school. They're probably going to say none or maybe a class. It's almost non-existent. It's like we all raised our right hand, but how can you support and defend something if you don't know what your own rights are? You don't know what's in it. You don't know how to define them. how can you support somebody else's rights?
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, as we get start to kind of get towards the end of our time here, I do want to come back to um, talking not just about what you've been through, but how is it that you've stood firm? How have you had resolve? I mean, it would be there's so many people who, frankly, would have just given up, who have said this is too high a price to pay. I mean, Brandon, you because they took you off the promotion list. I know that's cost you thousands of dollars in pay, and you've got a big family. There's a big effect there, and you've spent a lot in your legal battle to get the Army to do the right thing, to get the Army to just follow its own policy, right? And I mean, I know there's had to been a lot of thought going into why are we still fighting this? I mean, what undergirds you to keep doing what you know is right?
I probably have, for better or for worse, a little bit of an issue with quitting. Sometimes maybe it's a little bit detrimental. I don't know. I mean, I once ran 100 miles on a treadmill in Jalalabad, Afghanistan, to raise money for some guys that we lost, and for their families. Um, so I just, sometimes things hurt, and that's why I challenged Secretary Hegseth to a 24-hour race, and I told him on X, if I run further than he does, that he has to go back and personally make sure that everybody's careers are restored that were negatively affected or impacted by the COVID mandate. So far, I haven't heard from him. I was thinking about making a video, maybe one of the workouts I'm doing. I don't know, maybe I can kind of help get him pumped up for it. But for better or for worse, I don't want to quit, and it's not just for myself; it's for my kids, so they see that their dad, that I keep fighting. And luckily, I have my wife. She's been super patient. Like when they put me through the flying evaluation board, she came to it and sat through it with our brand new baby. At the time, he wasn't even a year old yet, and she sat through all 12 hours of it, all the way from start to finish. And she's been by my side through all of this, even the financial struggles and the emotional, the mental struggles. You have those moments where you know that giving up would be easier. I had one of those moments when my battalion commander and my company commander sat with me in an office, and my battalion commander is like, "Look, man, you can keep fighting this. It's terrible what happened to you, but at what point do you call it quits? Because you're putting your family at risk." And so when they put it in those terms, yeah, you run into those moments where you just want to stop. But then you hear about somebody who's committed suicide, or somebody that's been put through, I think about Seth Ritter, and his command putting him through a mental health assessment, and just that level of bullying that happened. Somebody sits in a cell over this thing, or something to that extent, and I can't quit. If I do, I'm sending a message that it's okay to give up on hard things to my kids. I'm sending a message to anybody I've ever been a mentor for in the military, that the things that I had told them at that time, they were just words, and that I couldn't actually put any of that into action. I think of all of the people that have helped. I think about General Flynn, and what he went through, and I haven't gone through what he's gone through. He went through much more, and he's been by our side. He's been helping with this stuff. I think about a friend of mine, I won't give his name now, but just absolutely put his career on the line for us, and those are the reasons I can't quit. I owe those people. I owe the people that aren't with us anymore. I owe them my full dedication to this, and whatever happens, at least at the end of the day, when I'm gone, I can know at that last minute that I did the best I could, and then my kids will know that their dad did the best that he could, even when things were hard.
Yeah, you'll know you lived. You'll know you lived. Chris, I want to ask the same of you. I mean, we haven't had time to get nearly into both of your stories as in depth as I would like, and maybe we can try to do that again at another time. But again, the Guard is not your primary vocation. It'd be probably easy to say this isn't worth it, but you're still here. You're still in the fight. You're still trying to get your commands to just do what the actual Defense Department policy is, and it would be so much easier not to. What steals you, man?
First off, I'm a man of principle. Right is right, wrong is wrong. And kind of along the lines of what Brandon has already said. And I can't just walk away. I've spent hundreds of hours of my life now studying law. I've done notices and affidavits. There's other things that I have not covered on this interview that I think a little bit we've spoken about offline. I'm very much in a position to take this to federal court. And if I need to, I really don't want to. But yeah, at the end of the day, just the short of it is, I'm a man of principle.
I appreciate it. Let me ask you last question as we kind of bring her in for a landing here. Chris, there's so many people who will probably hear this and identify with what you said, but question, would they want to go through what you've been through? Would they want to deal with the hassle? What would you say to that person who's on the fence to encourage them?
Like as far as joining the military or dealing with understand you're not alone. There, we've all kind of met each other through Signal, and know that you're not alone. There are a lot of other people out there. You can learn from I hope you don't mind me saying this. You can learn from my teacher-in-law, a man by the name of Dave Jose. You can find him on X at Real Dave Cares, the number 4, the letter U. Or reach out to me, and I'll happily get you in contact with him. Be willing to learn your rights. Be willing to learn the Constitution. God is going to pick people who are diligent and are prudent and are going to be very thorough people who are going to study and do things with precision. And I'm going to stand on the law here. It is my job and my duty to do so.
And Brandon, over to you. Same question, sir. What would you say to someone who's on the fence who needs to build some resolve and hold firm?
I told my 10-year-old son yesterday that there was something we were doing and it was hard for him and he wanted to quit and he was nervous about it. And I told him that everything we do in life is going to be hard, especially the things that are worth doing, and that no matter the difficulties, we face the monsters. I think of Jocko Willink's book that he wrote for kids, and The Dragon. I don't know if anybody's ever had the chance to go through that with their kids, but it's definitely worth it. You know, we've all got our dragons in life, things that seem scary and ominous, things that seem impossible to overcome. And even if we're not able to fully overcome them because of extenuating circumstances or whatever it might be, the fact that we willingly face them is what matters. I think there's a funny old John Wayne quote. He was playing an admiral in one of his movies. And in that movie, as that admiral, he said that something to the extent that most battles are fought by men who'd rather be somewhere else. And so even when we'd rather be somewhere else, we fight. And again, we're not asking for handouts. You know, I challenge the SecDef because I'm willing to put myself on the line. I'm willing to put my comfort, my physicality, my everything. I'm willing to put it on the line. I'm not asking for handouts. I'm asking for somebody to do the right thing, and I will do whatever is necessary to repay that tenfold for myself and for everybody else that's been wronged.
Wise words. Much respect to both of you. As we close out here, are y'all online? Can people follow you? And how can we try to help you in getting this message amplified to get the military to start doing the right thing?
if I could go. Definitely get the publicity out there. Yes, you can follow me. You can look me up, Chris Babczak. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. I just created a TikTok account. I have not posted a single thing yet on it. I have no followers, no postings yet. It's brand new. I think I have a Telegram account. I've never used it. But you can follow me if you'd like or get in contact me there. Members of Congress, the ones that have been most responsive has been Jim Jordan, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Thomas Massey, are four good ones. There are others out there you can reach out to, but those are the four that really come to mind. That's all I have at the moment to keep this very short.
I'm on X at Lucky7. You could probably find me that way. That's the only place I really am. And then just echo the work through your congressional representatives. You know, if we inundate their inboxes with requests for relief, eventually they're going to have to do something. You can't ignore it forever. And so constant reminders that this is still out there, that these things are still happening, that as dangerous as the world can be, we're still removing experience, we're still placing people under undue stress and unnecessary repercussions for something that's already been deemed unlawful. So in order to save the military, to save the members of the military that have promised everything up into their own lives to protect this nation, to protect the Constitution, we need to make sure that we're engaging with our congressional representatives.
Completely agree. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for your stand. Thanks for coming on. There are so many more like you. I mean, I'm in touch with many others in very, very similar positions as you, who are still being pushed out by their change of command when the policy is clearly saying that they are on the right. And so I appreciate you being willing to come on and be the faces for them and to share this story. And thanks for standing. And I will do everything I can to try to continue beating this drum, because a military that doesn't do the right thing here is one that you can't be certain will do the right thing over there as well. And we have to take care of our own if we're going to take care of the American public. So I salute both of you. I thank you both so much for coming on, and keep up the fight, man. You got a supporter in me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us, Chase.
Absolutely. I'm coming to you from the Herzog Foundation Studios in Smithville, Missouri. To learn more about the Herzog Foundation and the amazing work they do to catalyze Christian education and bring you brave voices like these men, head on over to herzogfoundation.com. If you'd like to learn more about me and my work, you can head on over to chasespears.com. On this podcast, I try to bring you voices and perspectives on courage, but it's up to you to actually put them into practice. It's up to you to find your spine. So get busy about it. I'm Chase Spears. Thanks for listening.
Remember to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode, and we'll see you next time on Finding Your Spine.